Hello, and welcome to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast series. WWW is a platform where we provide a space for women to leverage collective wisdom, experiences, and inspiration from women powerhouses in our industry to become innovative game changers. We will be engaging in insightful conversations with women who have changed the face of businesses in our industry and trailblazers who have steered innovative and creative ideas. This is a must-listen podcast for women leaders, professionals, and entrepreneurs to become visible, break glass ceilings, and to grow their impact. We believe that sharing these insights will be a catalyst for women in our industry to unleash their potentials and to seize the crisis as a turning point. So join our conversations by subscribing to Women We Watch in Tourism podcast.
Joining me in today's conversation is Sharihan Al Mashary, Emirati hotelier and policy influencer, a former aero and astroscience student who went on to become the first female Emirati general manager in the history of the UAE. For over 14 years, Sharihan's dedication and service to the hospitality industry has won her many international and regional awards across the hospitality dimension. Sharihan is also founding member of Global Sustainability Network, an organization dedicated to eradicating modern-day slavery, cultivate sustainable economic growth through employment of youth and women by 2030, as set forth by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So excited to have this conversation today. Welcome to Women We Watch podcast, Sharihan.
Hello, Zinal, and all of our listeners. Thank you so much for having me on the podcast. I'm really excited.
Great. So before we start, I think I'm very curious to know something about you. And that's going to be that you have been into hotel management business for 14 years and worked with some amazing leading luxurious chains of hotels. Which has been your personal favorite?
Oh, this is very interesting. Now, everybody's quite biased to either their place of birth or the place where they started their journey. And for me, it would be the place I started my journey, and that would be with Jumeirah Group and at Burj Al Arab, the world's only 7-star hotel. And that was the birth of it all. That was, somewhere I went to work every day, and I thought, this is what being a hotelier looks like or could look like. So I've worked with many chain hotels, big names out there in the industry. Majority of them are homegrown, but within the luxury scale. However, I must say, for me, the start of my journey would always be a home, and that would be Jumeirah.
I think it's always the case, where you start your journey is always very, very special because that's when you get started with your learning. And I think you always have that soft corner for the place that you start working with. So let's get the conversation a little more in deep about your professional journey. So can you share briefly about your professional journey and one quote which has been constant through your journey?
Now let's go back 14 years almost. So I think I had no clue what hospitality as a career meant, or what hotel management meant, but I understood that when I started studying the field. And I think I got quite fortunate because I've always wanted to be in an area where practical work was more predominant than admin work. And when I started the hotel school, that's the only option they give you. You either start within the practical semester, or then it swaps over to the management and theoretical sides of the semester. So luckily for me, I started with a practical side, and it was in culinary arts. It was in the kitchens and kitchen productions, And for me, that was heavenly, because it was standing, doing things, getting creative with your hands, with your body, and just being out there doing things. And I felt so much of a value that I could either add or learn by doing. So it started in a hotel school. I still had no clue what it meant, but I think in life, sometimes if you're lucky, you would have along your journey or meet along your journey few people who would become your mentors. Sometimes they're quite evident, and sometimes they are your angel in the back that whispers the directions and kind of guide you and lead you. And I got very lucky with that. So one of my teachers, who's also the head of the culinary arts for the university where I was studying my hotel management, was my mentor, and still is my mentor, and will always be my mentor and my friend. So he made me believe that I was that good, even when I had no clue I was. And that was the start of it. And I think there were times where I always go back to some of the words he would say, and sometimes, and because I started quite competitively in culinary arts, where I focused and competed in the field. So I did a lot of culinary competitions and cooking competitions, salon culinaire, either regionally or internationally. So that for me was a base. And sometimes you've got to be in it to win it. That was something that kind of stuck with me. But then it was more than just the competitive part. For me, it meant when you're in something, go in it wholeheartedly. And winning, it could be wherever you end up, you are the best amongst your peers, or you are doing the best. And one of the things I've learned through my journey is your knowledge must be transferred or transferable. And and that's something I've kept, and it resounded through the years with me. As I moved up from hotel school, I started working right as a student as well, because that's what I wanted to do. Fast track my career journey if I couldn't fast track my education journey. And that was the exciting part. And hospitality kind of gave that opportunity. I think in our part of the world, part-time job as students and internships and apprenticeship is a new factor that, unless it was part of a hotel school or a hotel degree, hotel management degree, it was not possible, especially at my time. Things have changed over the past 5 years, where internships are becoming part of a norm within student life. And also now a lot of these schools, even in the public school or state schools and state universities, require volunteer hours or apprenticeship hours. So a lot has changed or evolved. And sometimes for us, we feel it is revolutionary. It may not be in different parts of the world, but for us, as a great country that's almost 50 years old, but has progressed incredibly to being what it is, and to to lead to where we're going, and the future looks enormously bright. So now, I don't want to prolong this, but my journey did start in hotel school, and I started working with the chain company, which was Jumeirah. And I worked very, very hard. And I told everybody, please treat me as a full-time employee and not as a management trainee or a student. And I think that helped me. And one of the things I've learned, and it's a quote I always use, is you've got to earn your stripes. And I've worked very hard to prove to everybody that it is true. You do have to earn your stripes to earn your respect. And also, your knowledge will take you to your next level up, or you move a stripe up to where you want to go. So fast track that. Over the years, I moved from being in the kitchens within culinary arts, then moving towards restaurant management, and then events, operations, and then more towards the senior leadership roles and senior management, to then becoming a general manager. And through that journey, I passed through several luxury hotels, all of them 5-star, different brands, quite exclusive. So you had, the homegrown exclusive brand, Jumeirah, and then you had, a fashion brand, Palazzo Versace, the first Palazzo Versace hotel, in the region. The first one was at Australia, Gold Coast, Australia, and then the second one is in Dubai. And then I moved to one of the largest developer, EMA, and worked within their hospitality division. So it's been a rewarding journey, but I tell you, it was a challenging journey as well. But yeah, there's no pleasure without some of the challenges, because that's our life lessons, I guess, Zinal.
I think that's what makes the journey very incredible, right? So I loved what you just said, that you have to be in it to win it. I think that's what it is. You have to really put that hard work. My next question is going to be about challenges. So can you throw some light on the glass ceiling that you have come across in your career in Middle East, and how did you really manage it? What did it really take?
It's as you said, there are no journeys without challenges. And if there were a journey without challenge, it would not lead you to anywhere. You would probably be still in the same place as you are. And I think that's the difference. Now, breaking the glass ceiling, or breaking any ceilings, or breaking any glass, does take courage. And if you're fortunate enough, you would have the support and the backing of your family, and your circle, and your teachers, and some of your mentors. But I think in our region, if we take it into, steps, or if I may use the metaphor and analogy of an onion. So my journey has been like peeling an onion, right? Each layer could be a little harder. You will shed a tear or two, but then it's the most enjoyable, I think, journey you'll ever go through, because you grow. And through difficult times, one learns about themselves more than when you learn about anything else. So I think the first challenge was to not challenge the stereotypes, but to perhaps shed a different light. Now, coming from our background, it might be quite similar to yours, Zinal. It's a little bit unheard of if somebody tells their parents, I'm going to be in hotels or work for hospitality. It's not known for it to be a career of choice. Neither does it hold any prestige for your family to be proud of you. So, you had to break through that first. And, to break through that, you've got to show aspects that are maybe more exciting about the field. So to get your, my family were very supportive, although I did get my brothers laughing at me the whole time. So what are you now, a glorified waiter? How do you have that conversation with the head of the family, with your father, with your Emirati side of the family, because I'm mixed race. My mother is not Emirati, where I think the support of that openness came from. However, my father, bless his soul, he was very supportive. He had one condition and one condition only, that whatever we did, my siblings and I, that we would be the best at it, and we would make the country proud first, and then your family proud. Because I think in our part of the world, that family pride and the country pride goes a far way. So to make things more acceptable in our culture is, we are, or I would be the first to do really well in this field, or, I want to give the opportunity for the girls in my background or from my culture to find career paths that's outside the norm, and to make it more acceptable. Through history, people understood as hotels and hospitalities for, the providers of accommodation, for providers of something that might be slightly unknown or forbidden, through the times of, speaks easy. And that era, that connotation of the fields lingered still within a lot of the traditional families and cultures. So how do you break that? So then I decided, look, this is something I want to do, but the only way I could do it is to be best at it. And that's the only way, my family will be proud, but also my country will be proud. And kind of that stuck around with me. I never planned on continuing this journey because I wasn't sure what destination I wanted to go, what would be my destination. I had no idea. I just had a very open mind and a stubborn heart to, this is something I started, I must continue it and see where it leads. And that mindset of me of, I'm going to be the best, do the best, and let the journey lead me to my next destination or to my next pit stop. And that's how I've seen it. So that was one way that I did that. But when you start working, you learn so much. You learn that, yes, everybody's right. It is a male dominant environment. Yes, everybody's right. You've got to work harder as a woman and to prove yourself, because one, there are probably fewer women in the leadership positions than they are men, and then you had to prove yourself constantly. And sometimes it was by doing more or coming up with creative inventions that utilized more skills and talent, and that whole concept of optimization, you pick it up very early on. So you do too many things and you become good at too many things just to show that I am capable of doing far too many than my peers. And that was one of the, I think, realities I had to face, and I'm sure many have faced and will continue facing. But I think that is what the industry is, only because certain levels are women heavy and certain levels are male heavy or men heavy. And to find that balance, sometimes you've got to create it. And they always say inventions are when you put forward an example and make people believe in it. And I think I've seen several great women who do that. And, I had to figure it out myself. And sometimes in life later, you would realize there are a few smart way of doing things, which I think the male have adopted, which we haven't, is, the power of network. I think, so it's a very creative way of, learning or, fast tracking your journey. And, it is your power of network. It is that, 6 degree of separation theory, all the things that you read and hear. There's a big truth to it. And I wish I learned a lot of those a lot earlier in my life, maybe in my 20s, early 20s, instead of my late 20s, or even now I'm 32. So I guess, there are different ways that you learn from each other. So I think that was the second biggest challenge. And then, the third challenge was to, how do I now, with where I'm standing today, because one must never forget where they stood yesterday. How can I do more for everyone, for the youth, for the women, for my people, when I say my people, my team, people I've worked with, I had the greatest pleasures to work with as well, and have them to work with me. And also my nation, how can I encourage that hospitality, tourism and travel is a serious career, is a career that families and your nation can be proud of, is a career that has longevity. And also it's a career that supports your country's economic growth, especially in the UAE and Dubai. So these were all the things that I've gone through different stages to become, the first Emirati general manager, and then to get awarded. I got awarded in Malaysia, I got awarded in Finland, and then also to be awarded in the country as well. But also what I was really proud of is getting the Young Arabian Leader for Impact in Hospitality, and that heavily came from my not just my career path and what I did as a hotelier or general manager, but also in my downtime I was training and teaching the youth and the national youth to compete in culinary skills, so to compete in skills-based competitions that were related to service industry, and I was very proud of doing that, because you've got to show that this is a serious business, it is a serious career, and there is longevity in that, and there's pride in being part of the industry. So I don't know if that answered your question, but in every stage I had big challenges, and things sometimes don't come easy. And if you're fortunate, I was fortunate to have one or two mentors who guided me in the right light or the right direction.
Thanks so much, Sherry. Obviously, your journey has been difficult but very inspiring as well. What I feel that to break that glass ceiling, you actually need the tribe of people around you to do that, to support you. And I think with them, you really can achieve what you want to really do. What shifts and changes have you been able to create with your work for UAE's youth national team in hospitality and service industry?
Several aspects, and I would enjoy talking about it too. So I think for the youth, we got very fortunate, because the technical and vocational education may not have culinary arts, restaurant service as a subject matter. However, they've ensured that if there are talent, we would support that talent to compete. So that's part of the national agenda and technical and vocational education agenda. However, in the culinary field, or in hospitality, when you study hospitality management, or say when you start working at a hotel, there are leaders who actually support their team or members of their team to compete, and they would encourage them and support them and train them. So because that's how I started and that's what I knew, and I thought that would be the the right thing to do and the right way, from what I know, to start with the youth. But also one of the things I did was design programs that would encourage the nationals and also in general youth to enter the field by supporting their recruitment, by providing them internships. So kind of went through the whole restructure of recruitment and people, and see what we could do better as a hotel, or even as, you know, a hotel under a chain, and can I inspire the other sister properties and the other general managers to perhaps do the same. At one point I had 40 nationals, Emirati nationals, who signed up for a program that I support design completely. I trained about 15 of them under me, and guaranteed jobs for a majority of them based on their interest and their field. And what I try to do is show them that no matter what degree you hold, be it finance, human resources, or engineering, you have a place in a hotel and you have a place in hospitality, which I think was an eye-opener to so many people, because hotel management only meant to many restaurants, front office, you know, receptionist, and just, you know, a man or a gentleman being a general manager, you know, making sure things run. Everybody forgot that there are so many different departments that makes a place function. You know, it's your facility management, is your floristry, is your housekeeping, and that people's management that you may not learn very quickly in different fields that you choose to go into and work, whereas you would learn or pick it up very, very quickly in a hotel environment or hospitality environment. That was not available to the public knowledge, you know, from my lens, and within, you know, the field here in the region. And that was an eye-opener to many people. And, you know, I think, you know, for me to be part of that and to support that, and then, you know, I was so pleased to see there were other general managers or other leaders within the field understood it. And, you know, if one could do best practices, could engage in great examples that could be copied and applied, why not do it? You know, nobody's here to reinvent wheels. We're not there to reinvent a wheel. You know, we're there to learn from each other, and best practices that could be transferred from one place to another, from one department to another. And I think, you know, the next thing that I was very active in was supporting the universities, be it a hospitality school, which I still continue supporting the university I graduated from, but also different institutions and colleges that teach or train hospitality. And I started now a lot more eventually in the coming weeks. I'd be talking to schools and students in the juniors and senior grades about a career in hospitality and what it looks like and what it really means and what the future holds for them.
Nice.
I don't know if that answers some of your questions.
Absolutely. I think, you know, there's so much of insights into the business, and it just kind of makes me even more exciting for the next question. So you spoke about, you know, the different departments of hospitality business. And I'm sure you also know that as per global statistics for any industry, women diversity is surely improving, but not at the leadership roles. So what do you think, where does the women growth in the hospitality business is kind of moving? And three skills that has helped you to grow into leadership roles. So what are the advices you would give them?
Look, Zinal, I think we've come a long way as an industry. This is regardless of geographical locations, regardless of what work policies are. We've come a long way as an industry that was known to be a male dominant industry, continues to be. However, we've seen significant changes, and maybe in the past it wasn't talked about, but it's becoming part of the conversation in the past few years. And you're right, it was difficult in the past to see female general managers, and it was difficult in the past to see female CEOs, or within the C-suite but they were outnumbered by the majority of the male peers. Now, my advice has always been, and it may not work for everybody, but it's the desire and honesty of the respect that you put forward for the industry. And a lot of people, they move up the ranks very quickly, which is not a bad deal at all. However, when you take your time to learn the field and learn aspects of it, or grow within your journey from one step to the next, or you earn one stripe and then you move on to earn your next stripe, you gain a lot of respect from the leaders of the industry, and that is the difference. So one of my advice would be very honest. If you can be brutally honest and start with yourself. Why are you in this field? Because it is a service industry. It's an industry that you will wholeheartedly serve. So unless you walk into it knowing that you shall selflessly serve for X amount of years, then it would be more accepting of you to enjoy that journey as you move up, or you grow within the ranks. However, if you walk into the field, and this could be apply across many fields, if you walk into the field thinking that, I want this field to serve me, you might be into a shock. So be very honest with yourself, and whatever you do, do it with a lot of passion and honesty. And I think I've picked that up maybe because I've started in culinary arts, and I've started in production side, where one mistake in your food, or in how you cook the food or present the food, could have consequences in the outcome. So you were always very brutally honest about the work that you did. And so that may not apply to a lot of different characters who perhaps want to be in sales, marketing, whereas sometimes it is the theatrics, and sometimes it is the power of convincing and the power of marketing. Either it's yourself or the brand or anything. There is honesty to it, but there's sometimes a stretched honesty, whereas that theory will never work behind a stove or in the kitchens, because and I think that's where I really understood, because I've learned it the hard way. You've got to have that heart. You've got to be honest. You need to understand, I'm here to serve, and whatever it is that I need to do, I've got to do it 100%, because there is not going to be an easy way to my next step or to my next growth. Where a lot of people enter fields looking for that fast track journey. In life, you can get lucky. And I think that comes back to the things I've learned through the journey, is the power of your network. As you grow your skills, you also need to grow your network. But I think you've got to be very honest with yourself when you enter the field. And it's one of the most exciting fields, because if I'm going to be very honest with you, it is the only place or the only industry in the world that will give you audience of all shapes, characters, colors, and it's all exciting, right? These audience are either our guests, these audiences are either the people we work with, and you're on a stage where people will feel your performance, people will see the art that you create, people would feel the genuinity when you put into something, when you put your heart and soul into it. So I think when you look at it, it's quite fascinating, because you could be the world's best actor, unless you could create a feeling within your audience, and your audience are your people, so your staff, the people you work with, and your guests. Can you translate that passion, and can they feel it? And that's when you will always have a return. People would want to come buy your ticket, or people would want to come come and stay in your hotel and get a room for that night, or come to your restaurant. So I think it is all about that. And a lot of people look at the field from one view. However, when you look at it, it is a very romantic industry. It's got art, it's got history, it's got a culture of its own. It can be theatrical, and it is always exciting, because I think, as we move on into the years to come, it is the field that is always coming up with creative ideas to stay relevant, to stay hip, to stay fashionable, and to stay pretty cool. So I think when you look at it, it's probably one of the most fashionable industries, and also the most exciting. So yeah, that would be one of my I think advisors, is just be honest with yourself when you enter the field. And you've got to work hard, but learn along the way, and just take people with you in your journey.
So now that, of course, we know about your journey, and it is very inspiring. So what do you think can women in Middle East specifically avail themselves to the opportunities in the tourism industry?
I think we're very fortunate, because in the UAE, the government is really supporting with different initiatives to make the industry first known, to make it more accepting, within the traditional families, and also that this is a future career path, and this is the future of the city and the country. So when you make that possible, make initiatives, programs, and supports possible, a lot of families will start to have an open view or an open idea towards it. If the country shows to people that, we're so proud of, women who are leading in the field, or, men and women leading in the field, but also this as a career is a career where we would wish to see more of our nationals, then it becomes more accepting to families. Like, if the country is proud of it, then as parents and as a nation, we would also be proud to have our children take that career path. And and I think for women, please don't be afraid. There's a great deal of bravery and courage that will come a long way if you take that one step. And like I said, enter with an open heart and an open mind, and do not think of where this would lead or the destination you would end up. Because I always said this, I said, every other field will give you a platform, and it is only hospitality and hotels will give you an arena. And a gladiator will only walk into an arena and will never walk into a platform. So have that in mind, because when you enter an arena, the world is yours. Just like hospitality, there are so many different angles and departments to it that, you know, the options become almost endless. So, you know, you have far too many paths going towards anything that you do enjoy. So that's what I think, and that's what I think, you know, a lot of people should be brave about.
Okay, but do you think that in specifically to Middle East, that the approach towards women as compared to men, it has changed, like more women are joining tourism industry now?
Women are joining tourism industry, but also I think as nationals, it is becoming more evident that we are seeing Emiratis or UAE nationals entering the field. Now, there are several aspects of it. I think sometimes when you realize that a certain industry, like maybe the banking industry, for an example, or the public sector, cannot hold any more workforce, then you start becoming creative with your career path. And then you start looking at what is the largest sector that employs people and what's great about it. And we've seen a lot of people start considering the private sectors, which a lot of hotels fall under private sector, is okay, now I do not have an option anymore within the public sector. Let me explore. And that adventure that few women or few nationals within the region have explored or started many years ago is now being adopted by, you know, the new generation. Everybody wants to shift towards what's exciting, and hospitality is ever growing and ever changing. That element of curiosity and adventure and excitement is becoming more evident. But one of the factors that the country supported in terms of policies for women to enter the field, or for national women to accept that, is, you know, perhaps the midnight shifts are not a popularity, and there is a support from the government that, you know, women should not work after a certain hour, or, you know, the nationals would not work after a certain hour. But as a general, you know, there is the support that, you know, we are not forbidding the companies or organizations or hotels not to have women on the roster that would work night shifts, but we are showing them that, you know, there is always an opportunity for them not to promote the night shifts, to make it more accepting, especially with some who have become mothers as well, or, you know, they're married and they would like to have the balanced life. So that's one aspect. And the other aspect is your departmental, non-operational side of the hotel, you know, which is your human resources, your marketing department, your, you know, a lot of your admin roles, and sales. These are all office hours and office jobs. So it's your 8 to 5 and 9 to 6 jobs. So, you know, there's more support to women, or, you know, married women, or, you know, Emirati, or women who come from the region and the country, to view that as something quite similar to the roles outside of hospitality, which means I can have a balanced life, I can still look after my family, you know, to make it more accepting. And there are support, and I think a lot of hotels have done that automatically. And then over the years, with the support of the government and initiatives, and that cultural understanding of this is what we need to provide or support, you know, it has become more accepting for women to enter the field, especially of you know, of the region and the country as well. And then the other thing we have seen is, like I said, the excitement part of it. A lot of people, especially the young generation, are really comparing, where do I grow more, where do I learn more, and you know, and then they would compare that public sector to private sector. And I think a lot of them have started doing that. And we've seen a huge surge in the past few years of many nationals and many women who are now considering private sectors or hospitality and hotels particularly. It could be within one of those roles that are 9-to-5 jobs, but also they are considering this culture of adventure and excitement because they know there is a support, there is a system in place, there are international standards that it's abiding by, and I think they would weigh out the pros and cons, and there are far too greater of advantages than disadvantages.
I think, the way we are watching you, I'm sure, there are a lot of women that you must be also watching, right? Like you must be having some inspiration to you. So what's your inspiration? Which women inspires you the most?
I think across my journey, I've met several tremendous examples, and I took a step back and thought, wow, I want to be her or like her, or just the best version of me that can do what she's doing. That also comes from home. I'm very lucky to have a phenomenal, wise mother, and her wisdom has always been, something that I took on board, and not all the time, so sometimes when you're young you think you know best, and
Right.
but later in life you realize mum was right. Mums are always right.
I had that feeling today also. I felt that my mom is always right.
But you never admit that, right? You don't admit
Yeah.
that, or you always think you might be a little more cheeky, a little smarter, and and a lot of mothers have given up their careers and looked after the family, but running a household, and she was very active in my dad's business, and to run 5 children and do a lot more, that's management skills. That's a
True.
lot of wisdom. So I was quite fortunate to have that strength, I think, given to me or reflected. But I've had I've met very later in life, I've met female general managers, but I did meet several great leaders who were women. Not always in hospitality. I think it was far later in life I met them who were part of hospitality, but I met them as governors. They were part of the government. They were part of decision making and policy creation. They were heading and running states and people and diplomacy. They were leading lawyers. And so I thought, wow, and that was my introduction when I was a lot younger. So we're talking about going back about 10-12 years ago. Those were some of the examples I saw, and then later in life, I was so fortunate to meet women who actually were leading the industry and how they ran. And, I think 10 years ago, there was a conversation in the country where, as in, a lot of the CEOs, men and women, they were asked about if they had a mentor or if they were a mentor to somebody. And I think that was a realization to so many C-suite individuals. And this conversation was about 10 odd years ago in the region. And I think that has changed significantly over the years, where there are more networks of, young women trying to enter the field or trying to work their way up and have no guide or have no mentor, and that has become more prominent to see. And you know, because it does make a big difference, that support system, somebody who would share what you're going through, and you know, because everyone has gone through the stage. So you know, I've met them a lot later in life, you know, halfway through my journey. That's when I met those incredible examples of leaders who are women. And so and I always thought, you know, I'd like to do I'd like to be someone who would make a difference, and I started doing that within the place I worked.
Right.
You know, what meaning do I bring to the people I work with, and how can I be more supportive? You know, and you learn, you always learn from your journey. You never enter anything knowing it all.
Absolutely not. And I think if you know it all, then you're not moving at all. It's
I
that's
like
how it
that.
works.
I really like that.
What is that one takeaway that you want listeners to get from this episode and your experience?
I think, in all honesty, you know, and I think I'll use this again. Always know yourself to be a gladiator, and a gladiator walks into an arena and not a platform. So choose places, wherever it is that you may go, that gives you opportunities that are endless. Do not choose a path that will only lead you to one end or to one stop or to one destination. And have the courage to fall, have the courage to pick yourself up, have the courage to even cry, but continue the journey, lead that path, and do not dare take one journey that would only give you one door. So that would be
Absolutely.
the last takeaway.
Yeah, I think that's really very well said. And I think it's more about focusing on long-term goals rather than just one short-term goal. And that's really good, Shari. Last question. If our listeners want to connect with you online, if they
Yep.
are interested in finding out more about your work, how do they do that?
Um, Honestly, reach out to me either on via email or LinkedIn. This is I think one flaw of mine. I've not been active on social media, but as soon as I submit my MBA research thesis, I shall get on Instagram and the others, I guess.
Nice. So you are not on Instagram at all?
Not yet.
That's nice. I mean, I think that's very inspiring as well.
I think, you know, like I said, it may be one of my flaws. You know, it's very important to stay connected to people,
Absolutely.
you know,
Right.
and, you know, and this is where you've got to be part of what's fashionable, and technology is fashionable.
Right.
And you know, and this is what I've kind of not done. But again, you know, I'm learning, and this is something I will do. But for now, it will be LinkedIn, and of course my email address, and I'll be happy to share that. And Zinal, please go ahead and share that with the audience.
Absolutely. So you're already ready for your next upskilling with the digital world.
There we go.
So I think we had an amazing conversation, Shari. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights with us about the Middle East business, tourism, hospitality, your journey. And I'm sure the listeners are going to be very, very inspired. So thank you so much for joining and wishing you only the best.
Thank you so much, Zinal. Honestly, it's been an absolute pleasure. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I hope our audience have enjoyed it as well. Maybe giggled a little bit, maybe thought about this could be a career path, because honestly, it is tourism and travel that contributes to the global GDP by 10.3%. And so when you take that as your inspiration, then you would know the significance of economic growth that you could become part of, and in fact impact a lot of positive change. So yeah, I hope it was a fun conversation, because I really enjoyed it, and I guess we all shall stay tuned then.
And that was Sharihan Al Mashary. What a lovely and inspiring conversation. To all the listeners, thank you so much for being with us on episode 4. If you liked our episode or would like to share your views, please connect with us on womenwewatchtourism@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn, as well as subscribe to our podcast on all leading podcast platforms. This is your host Zinal, signing off from episode 4.